Very pleased how the weekend turned out for us. We addressed some needs, but really got some high character guys and some players that we think are going to help us not only this year but in the future, and are going to be great parts of this community. And with that, I'm free to take any questions.
Omar, you said on Thursday that you were the 10 minutes waiting for the Rams to pick before you guys selected Troy was nerve-wracking. Was there any of that going on yesterday when you were waiting to pick Zach?
I would say that is accurate. Yeah. It was those 7 minutes were going pretty slow, but excited to have him. He's a Steeler. There's another one I can't wait for you guys to really get to know. I'm not sure if you guys spoke to him or met with him yet, but it's gonna be a great addition to the team.
Did you try to trade up, anything like that?
We had conversations, about moving up, and the phone was ringing about moving down. I mean, I was really every round we were in, we had a pick. We were having conversations about moving up, moving down. It was pretty active.
Well, I know you've been asked a lot since you've taken the job about your mentality about being aggressive. What sort of different challenges are there to being patient and waiting in situations like that?
Yeah, I mean, you have no choice but to be patient on draft weekend. But it all comes down to what players are there when you're picking, and you try to make the right decisions on whether to move up, move down, or take a pick. I've said it before. For me, I know we made some moves last year, but it's when there's a good player there, it's hard to trade away from it. And we had opportunity to trade back this year. And with where we were, we just felt really good about the players we took where we took them.
Mike, you drafted 3 offensive linemen. What does that say? And also, the other coaches came in here, they all talked about the amount of snaps that these guys have played. Was that a focus? Guys who've had a lot of experience?
We're looking for guys with talent. Obviously, oftentimes that talent is coupled with experience. It's good to have a group that are mature as players and as people. And I think that's reflective of the collective that you're talking about. All that means we should expect those guys to have a high floor and maybe have a good presentation of what they're capable of early on. And for that, we're excited, certainly.
Mike, how do you think those 3 impact your room, the offensive line?
That remains to be seen. Obviously, we'll give them an opportunity to do that, but needless to say, we're really excited about having them. As Omar mentioned, we had some testy moments there leading up to our picks, but that's a good thing from my perspective. It means that we had guys on our board and we were excited about the potential of taking it. And I think in all 3 of those instances, we were really excited.
Mike, it looks like the last couple of years at least, you're pretty good on when to move up, when to not. Do you feel like you got a beat on that, like sort of how a draft unfolds, and can you read it as it unfolds?
I think we're just making decisions moment to moment based on what's available and whether or not it's attractive to us, and how much the phone is ringing. We roll our sleeves up. We do a lot of work before we get into these scenarios, and we were just talking, when you're prepared, it makes for a good weekend. We've been working long and hard, obviously. Our scouting department over the course of a 12-month calendar, and then he and I had an opportunity to get shoulder to shoulder and do a bunch of traveling, all for the purpose of preparedness, so that you can feel the way we felt this weekend, and just allow things to happen and make the moves necessary in an effort to round out our group. And so it's been a really good process. We're doing what we have to do, but largely it's been a good process because of the work that people are willing to do leading up to the weekend.
Mike, with the receiver you added in Roman Wilson, how do you feel like he complements George Pickens and also some of the other pieces you have in that room?
Just on his merits alone, forget how he complements anyone. He's a good player, he's competitive, he creates separation at break points. He's battle tested on the interior portions of the field. He comes from a winning program. You can't say enough about the winning component in terms of how it shapes their relationships with the game and what they're willing to do and their mettle. And he checks a lot of those boxes.
Mike, is there a common thread binding these guys in terms of their mentality and maturity? I don't know, you'll say it better than I will, that will enable them to contribute right away?
I don't know that if in every instance there is something that it binds, but obviously we value the tape, and oftentimes tape is produced by good relationships with the game and work ethic and being solid individuals. And we value all of those things. We research. And so I think that's kind of reflective of this group.
Mike, Roman talked about how hands-on you were with him at the Senior Bowl. How did that interest begin with him, and how did it grow over time leading into this?
I'm just trying to get familiar with everyone down there at the Senior Bowl. It is a great atmosphere for getting to know the guys, to getting up close with them, to watching them compete, to maybe give them some instruction and see how they take instruction and apply it to play. He's one of those instances. He and I had an opportunity to spend some time together. I think we interviewed him a couple of times in Mobile. We had an opportunity to get some intimate moments in practice sessions on field, challenging him to compete against some people, and it's just to get to know. An opportunity for me to get to know him, an opportunity for him to get to know me. But again, that's what I'm talking about when I talk about our process. We don't run away from the work, we run to the work. And I think it tees us up for a good weekend like we had this weekend.
You weren't on staff at Senior Bowl, right?
I was self-appointed on staff.
Yeah, I mean, you just go down there and wherever you want to go, you go, and wherever you want to talk to, you talk to.
Pretty much.
Mike,
Pretty much.
When you talk about watching the tape and you watch Zach Frazier's tape and he has that moment in his last game where he like clear crawls, hops off the field after fracturing his fibula, what does that tell you about the kind of player he is and the kind of person he is?
You know, it probably speaks more to the person. His quality play speaks to the player that he is. But he needs no endorsement from me. You guys are pretty familiar with him. He's a regional guy. He's a tough competitor. He was an instant contributor in Morgantown. He's got an awesome background from a Reed perspective, high school wrestling champ, and got a lot of respect for that combat sport. Just really comfortable with him as a player and as a person.
Were you guys surprised Peyton Wilson was still there with your second pick or third round?
You know, yeah, I think you could characterize it as surprised. I mean, he is a, award-winning linebacker, Butkus Award winner. Had an opportunity to get really familiar with him down in Mobile as well. But the linebackers themselves weren't coming off the board at that juncture. So sometimes they make runs on positions at different times, and it hadn't been a lot of linebackers to that point. I think he was number 5 or so.
How much more athletic are you with that inside linebacker position, and what might that effect have on your defense?
You know, we hadn't had a chance to look at the collective yet. I like to reserve some of those opinions until we get our groups on the field and start the process of working. But just on paper, certainly we've helped ourselves, whether it's Wilson or whether it's some of the things that we did in free agency with Queen. Man, we're really excited about the collection of talent we've been able to assemble.
You had guys with those running numbers before?
What's that?
Have you had multiple guys with those running numbers before?
I'm sure we have.
Omar, how much was it obvious early that offensive line was going to be this much of a focus, or was that maybe a reflection of the strength of this class? And how much did Andy's input did you take because of his experience in that area?
Yeah, I would say it's a little bit of everything you just said. It was a strong offensive line group. We've talked plenty of times about how we feel about the importance of the offensive line, and we got through day one. Obviously, Andy used to play the position, has a lot of knowledge not only about that position but all the positions, and it just kind of worked that way for us. And even in the 4th round, when he had a chance to get Mason McCormick, he's a guy that we had rated really high up there, and we have a couple players at position who were in the last year of their contracts, felt it was important to address it if he was there, and he did.
Omar, this might be a follow-up to Mike's question that he asked previously about Roman, but his addition to your wide receiver room, does that give you enough there with some of the guys that you had in the offseason too, or what you did with Alex's contract to restructure that, does that give you some ability to play with that later in the summer?
Yeah, we'll see. I've said it before, if there's ever an opportunity to improve the team, we're going to look at it, and if it makes sense, we're going to go after it. But, we restructured Alex's deal, and you said it puts us in a position to be flexible with some things if there's an opportunity to do something.
Mike, a couple times you always say you temper your expectations. A couple times you said we had a good weekend. What makes you feel at this point in time that you did have a good weekend?
Just our general level of excitement when we're on the clock and the options that were available to us, and the amount of research and information that we had on those options creates a really good sense of comfort in the process. And so that's what I mean when I describe a good weekend. Obviously, this weekend will be defined over the next 4 to 5 years with the quality of play of this collective. But in terms of how we feel today, it's about preparedness, it's about options, and feeling good about what we did through the process to provide good, clean decision making.
Two more questions.
Mike, what interests you in a guy like Ryan Watson?
Just his body of work. He's a long guy. He runs well. He's got position flexibility. He plays with an edge. And so those are some of the real tangible reasons why.
Mike, speaking of doing the extra work, did you by any chance have somebody at the St. Louis High School in Hawaii like 4 years ago? And do you remember Logan Lee almost running you over at a high school event?
I do not remember Logan Lee.
He told us about that, yeah.
Man, I got okay, that's interesting. I don't remember that. But no, we weren't in Hawaii, but we were in Ann Arbor. And there were reasons to be in Ann Arbor.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.